Hello everyone, welcome back to Cars, Grilling and Technology. This is Will. Welcome to my channel. Hope you enjoy the video. Today, as promised, we're doing a 1-year ownership review of my 2014 Tesla Model S. We're going to start on the inside real quick, just show you a quick view, and then we're going to go outside and start the review. But I've had the car for 1 year. We've had some really good trips in the car, but the car has not been without a few issues. Nothing that are deal breakers, but still need to talk about them. My goal with this video is to help anyone who is thinking about a Tesla but doesn't know anything about Teslas, that you can come back to this video and kind of look at things, because there are some things that I wish that I had known before I bought the car. Ultimately, for me, I still ended up getting the car that I wanted with a lot of the features. But, you know, back when I bought the car, it was kind of a crapshoot as far as knowing exactly what features the car had and what they did not. So we're going to talk about all of that. So I'll be right back. So as you can see, for a 8-year-old car, this car is in really good shape. If you didn't know, you would not know this car was this old. Like I said, it is a 2014. This is a Model S, and this one is a P85. So that's the performance model with the 85 kilowatt battery. I don't know if it's kilowatts, but I'm thinking that's what it is. But the car is just in really good shape. When I was first looking at buying a Tesla, I had said all along that I did not want a black car. Black used to be my go-to color, that anytime I would buy a car, I would always want to do black. But black is kind of hard to take care of, and I did not want to do that. But I saw this car, and I just thought this car was just too beautiful to pass up. So that's why we went ahead and got a black car. And as you see, the outside of it is flawless. We're going to go into a little more details on some of the features outside of the car. One of the things that is nice about a Model S is you've got the 2 trunks. Like in most Teslas, you have 2 trunks. But with the Model S, something that I did not know when I bought the car is that it's like a hatchback. So once you put the seats down, you can get larger items in the back of the vehicle. Let me show you what it looks like with the seats down. And with the seats down, you've got a ton of cargo space. With this vehicle, I have put a dishwasher in here. Me and my wife bought a new dishwasher, and I went to pick up the dishwasher in this, and nobody believed it would fit in, but it did. And we also bought a pretty large refrigerated wine rack that also fit in here with no problem. As long as it clears this little lip here, you've got plenty of room going front to back for items. This is the front trunk area. You may or may not notice, but because this is a rear-wheel drive, it only has 1 engine. So with these cars, the front trunk is larger than it would be with a 2-motor. So you've got a little bit more storage area in the front. And basically underneath the hood, the only thing you've got underneath here that would need your attention is you've got the windshield washer reservoir, and that's it. So nothing else to see here. When I was looking at Teslas, I wanted to get an older one. When I was doing my research, for my situation, an older one worked out better for me, and I'll tell you why. One of the reasons why I definitely wanted an older one is because the older ones have sunroofs. They stopped doing sunroofs in 2017, because I guess they were having a lot of issues with the sunroofs. But I always like a car with a sunroof. So an older one gave me that opportunity to get one with the sunroof. So now we're going to go on the inside of the car, and then we'll talk about some other things. And that's where we're going to really talk about some of the things that I wish I had known prior to getting this car. So while we're talking about why I went with the 2014, like I mentioned before, I wanted a sunroof. As you see, it's got a pretty large sunroof. And they did say that they were having issues with sunroofs, which is one of the reasons why they stopped doing them. But I figured it like this: if the sunroof stops working, then I'll have a full glass panoramic roof like the new ones do. So I won't really be missing out on anything. But so far, after a year, this one still works fine. But what I really wish that I had known, and luckily for me, I did get some clarification on this, but when you're buying a used Tesla, there are a lot of dealerships that have these cars but don't know anything about the cars. So they can basically not tell you a thing. I don't know why this is with Tesla, but they are very secretive about their cars. Like for instance, if you're buying a used Toyota or used Buick, most of the time you can take the VIN number with you to a dealership and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this car. Do you have any service records? And they'll tell you most of the time what kind of service has been done to the car, whether or not it's had a new transmission, a new engine, or whatever. As long as it's been done at a dealership, they'll tell you what it is. Tesla will not tell you anything. Even if you call and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this car, I want to know what's happened to it, they will not tell you anything. That's why it's kind of important to talk to a dealership. And my honest opinion is to do a Zoom call or a FaceTime with whoever you're thinking about buying the car from. If they're not willing to do that for you, I would walk away, because unless they do that, you really will not know exactly what features you're going to be getting on the car. And I'll explain that in a few minutes. But when I bought this car, you know, since they were having issues with the sunroofs, one of the things that I made them do was I made them get in the car and show me that the sunroof worked. So my salesman got in the car, pushed the buttons, and verified that everything worked on the sunroof. So that let me know that the sunroof would not be an immediate issue. But the main things you need to look at is, I'm hoping this is coming through on the screen, is this is the bread and butter as far as the Tesla goes. Because as you see, there's basically no buttons anywhere in this car other than the shifter. This is where you put it in gear. Then you've got your turn signal. And then you've got the stalk for cruise control right here. And you've got a few controls on the steering wheel. This is your volume up and down, and then this also changes your channel. Then you've got voice if you're going to tell the car to do something. I'll show that in a minute. And then it's also got a scroll wheel. I've got mine set up for the sunroof. So when I'm scrolling this wheel, it will open and close the sunroof. You can have it...
My apologies. I couldn't hear what you said. Sorry, could you say that again?
You can have it do a number of different things. Like for instance, if you scroll through, you press this, and you can have it do a number of different things. If you press this button, it brings up the menu. And then you can kind of scroll through what you want to be displayed when you press that. So I always like to have the sunroof done because that's what I use the most. So we'll put it back to the sunroof and then push that button again, and then that will lock that into place. We're getting back to the screen. So this is where the bread and butter is of a Tesla. So if you look here, you've got the quick controls, which a lot of this stuff is self-explanatory. And one of the biggest things that you'll want to know, and people will ask you, if the car has autopilot or self-driving. This car does not have that. In the early 2014s, which is what this one is, they did not have autopilot available yet. I did not really want the autopilot because autopilot was more money. I would have had to get an older model, and to be honest with you, I didn't really want to spend extra money for the car to drive itself. I was fully okay with me driving the car. Another thing is when you're buying a used one, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is that it might have autopilot on the car, but it might not be activated. So if you go to a dealer and they don't really know how to test to see if the autopilot is functional or not, you might spend the extra money on a car that allegedly has autopilot that does not, and then you have to pay extra money with Tesla to have it activated. But you've got the quick controls here, and you've got the lights. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is self-explanatory. When you get into the driving, you've got the comfort modes, the steering modes. I always have mine set to sport. Then the regenerative braking, you can have low or standard. Regenerative braking is like one pedal driving. So you'll see that when we do the test drive, but when you take your foot off of the gas pedal, the car starts to slow down, which is a nice feature because you don't go through brakes as fast. And once you get it down to a science, when you're driving, you can have the car slow itself down to about 7 or 8 miles per hour, and then just tap the brakes to stop it. So you're hardly ever using your brakes. Then the creep mode, I don't use that, but it's a nice feature that, like a regular car, when you take your foot off of the brake, it slowly starts to move, and then you hit the gas. I don't do that only because it uses up more battery. And then the traction control. Then with vehicle, this is an important setting because this is where you would have, where it would show if you have autopilot or not. I believe it's this screen, but one of the screens here will have the autopilot, and it will show you if it's activated or not. But if you don't have a salesperson go through here and do this, you would never know. And I would still, if it says that it's activated or if it says it has autopilot, I would make sure that it's functional in the test drive before I would buy the car. But I have mine set up for walk-away door lock. Because with a Tesla, you don't turn anything off. When you stop the car, you put it in park and get out. And then once you walk away, the doors will lock, and then the car will shut itself down. Then the auto present handles is when you walk up to the car and the handles come out. And then unlock on park. These are the features that I have set up. Then I have the auto mirror fold. This is also where you would see if you have the air suspension. Some of them have air suspension, some of them do not. But it's important to go through these screens, and even if you're not aware of what they are when you're doing the Zoom call or the FaceTime with the salesperson, to screenshot these and then do your research online or even call Tesla. They will give you information as far as what the different things do, but as far as what's been done to the car, they will not tell you. Then you've got the trips. It tells you the current trip, and what I think is a nice feature is it tells you how many miles you've gone since the last charge. The navigation, you've got your settings for navigation, and we'll talk about navigation in a minute. And safety and security. And then service, and then software. So this is where you would come in and it would tell you, as far as, what software you have and if it's up to date. And as you see, my car is up to date as far as the software goes. Another cool thing about getting an older Tesla is that when they first came out to get people to buy them, they were doing unlimited Wi-Fi and unlimited music. So I can go online and not have to pay with this car. Because it's an older car, the internet is kind of slow. They do have an upgrade that's $1,600, but every time I had that scheduled, something on the car would break, and I would end up using that money for something else. But once again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I do have premium connectivity, so if I'm going to surf the web or do any of that, then I don't have to pay. And then also in this vehicle, I've got unlimited music. So they have a system, it's made to kind of mirror Apple CarPlay, but it's not quite the same. But you can choose like what kind of music you want, and then it'll stream it, and that is something that you don't pay for in an older model. So that's something you also want to look into with an older model, because that's one of the advantages of getting an older one. Once we go into some of the other features, this row down here, this brings up a different menu where if you want to call someone, you can press that. You can also have your calendar synced to the car. So that's a nice feature. Then the camera, show you the rear camera, what you're looking at. Then energy consumption, and then charging. So if you want to charge the car, you can either use the app, or you can come right here and you just open the charge port and then plug it in. Like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. Then under supercharging, it says no recent supercharging. I'm not 100% positive, but I have heard that if the car says that and there's nothing else here, then you have unlimited supercharging. If you don't have unlimited supercharging, it'll say enter card number or something like that. I'm not positive, but before you buy one of these cars, and we're going to talk about that more when we get into the charging aspect of it, I would definitely take it to the nearest supercharger. If you're going to look at a car, if there's a supercharger 30 miles away from the dealership, or if you're buying from a private owner, I don't care how far away it is, ask them if you can take it to a supercharger. That will let you know if it has unlimited supercharging, because it will ask for money if it doesn't. And then it'll also show you how everything is working to make sure it's working correctly. Because most of the issues I've had with this car since I got it were supercharger related, and we'll talk about that, like I said, a little bit later. Then you've also got entertainment and the toy box. We can go in, and there's certain things you can set up on the pad. And yes, your eyes are not playing tricks on you, but that is a fart on demand button and fart on turn signal, where you can actually make the car make fart noises. You can also have it set up that if you're being a smarty pants and someone sits in the driver's side seat, then it makes the fart noise. So on a brand new car, this was $100,000, and it's just kind of funny that on a $100,000 plus car, they've got fart signals in it, but that's just something they did. So right now we're going to go on a road test, show you a little bit how this thing does on the road. So stay tuned. Most of the time when I'm driving, I like to have kind of the split screen with the information down here as far as music goes, then having this screen show the GPS locations. You can get rid of that, and as you see, that gives you a massive screen. Like I said, they've got an upgrade for this screen, so this is the older technology, but as you can see, it still gives you a really, really clear view of what's going on. Like I'm sitting in a parking lot, and then directly across the street you have a car dealership, so you can see the car dealership, so it really does give you a good idea of what's around you. But basically, to drive the car, you've got the stalk here. Let's put your foot on the brake, put it in the drive. And like I said, what's weird about a Tesla is it's ultra quiet, where it makes no noise. You just hit the gas pedal and you go. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. And this car is still pretty seamless, you know, for the age of the car. You know, I've driven some before I bought this that were newer, and there's really not a lot of difference with how it feels. And then as you can look over to the right of the instrument panel, when I take my foot off the gas, how you've got the green area that goes down here, that's the regenerative braking working, and that's also adding more energy back into the battery. So that's one of the cool features about the braking system. So So once we really get going, you'll be able to see exactly how much of a difference it makes. But like I said, I've got my foot off of the brake and it stopped at maybe 1 or 2 miles per hour. So here we're going. Like I said, it's just pretty smooth. Then over to the left gives you the range. So I've got 93 miles left on this charge. I haven't charged this car all week. I drove it quite a bit earlier in the week. Today is Saturday, and I haven't charged it all week, but I've still got enough to get me through the next couple of days if I decide to continue driving the car, because I don't plan on going too many places. But as you see, you know, there's not a lot of noise inside the car. So with the navigation, I've got it set up to take me home, and as you see, it's very clear and easy to see. I don't know if it's going to give me voice commands. I think I have the volume turned down, but I'm not positive. But it looks like we might have to turn around because it looks like there is something going on up ahead here, and I don't know if they're letting cars go through or not, so I might have to come back. Yeah, I had to turn around, but as you see, the arrow is me on the screen, so even if you have navigation off, it's kind of cool that it shows you exactly where you are. I think another cool thing about this feature and the navigation and the GPS on this is I did not know so many people around me have swimming pools. It's just kind of cool that you ride past the house and you have no idea and look on the screen and they have a swimming pool. But we're going to go around the corner here, and then we're going to give this thing a little bit of juice so you can see what everybody talks about as far as how fast a Tesla is. So unlike a lot of other cars, you know, to really get it going, you know, you put your foot on the brake and then put your foot on the gas, then let it rev up a little bit, and then you take your foot off the brake and then you zoom away. With the Tesla, all you got to do is just hit the gas. And it just keeps going, where it's a situation where the car just says, hey, have you had enough? Because it will not stop until you take your foot off of the gas. Sorry about that, it was a little bit jerky, because it is going to throw you back in your seat when you give it gas. That's just what they're known for, and that's just what they do. Even if you're going, right now I'm going 41, hit it, and I mean, we get to 60 almost instantly. So, not trying to get a ticket here, but the cars can go. And what's nice about it is, if you're trying to speed up, or if you're trying to pass someone on the highway, you know, once you hit it, you don't have to guess how much torque you're going to have. I mean, the torque is instant once you give it some gas. And then I took my foot off of the brake, and as you see, the car is just slowing down on its own. I have not touched the brake. I took my foot off the gas, and we're down to 6 miles per hour. Just tap the brake and you stop. That's one of the reasons why these cars don't go through a lot of brakes. Something else that's cool about them is the car does a lot of things that you tell it to do. For instance, if I push, also what's nice is when you're backing up, it gives you a really, really good, clear picture of what's behind you. Cool thing is when you're backing up, it gives you a nice clear picture of what's behind you, and it does have the sensors to warn you if you are too close to something. But the screen is very large. It gives you a really clear picture. So with one of these, if you back into something, it's your fault. So some of the other onboard features is this one does have a system where you can connect your garage door to the car. So basically you just push the button and then it opens up. One thing I want to mention is I was having issues with that, and I had to have Tesla service work on the car, and they came and did the work in my driveway, and they said for some reason if you have a Genie garage door opener, it's harder to get things linked up than it is with other garage door openers. But one of the cool features is you've got this button right here where you can tell the car certain things. Like for instance, right now it's at 67 degrees. So if I press that button and say I'm hot, then it will change the temperature. I'm hot. As you see, it took it from 67 to 64. So now with it that cold, I'm gonna probably be cold. So if I go back and say I'm cold, I'm cold. Then it took it back to 67 degrees. There's about maybe 10 or 15 different commands that it will do, and it works pretty good as long as you've got a signal for as far as Wi-Fi goes, and it usually works pretty good for you. Something else that people always ask about Teslas is people are worried about if you're going to run out of charging. The car will not let you do that as long as you know how the car works. For instance, we were talking about supercharging, so you can always ask the car where are the nearest superchargers, and it will show you on the screen. Here's an example. Show me the closest superchargers. And as you see, it pops up on the screen and lets you know from here, you know, there's superchargers like 16, 17 miles away. Then you can just cancel that out, but it shows you on the map where they are. Another cool feature is that if you're going on a road trip, people always say, well, how do you know when you need to charge? And I don't want to run out of charging when I'm on a road trip. But what you do, let me see if this will work. Navigate to Wrigley Field in Chicago. So then what it's doing, it gives us some choices as far as Wrigley Field goes. So then what you do is you want to pick this, whichever one you want. So we're going to pick that one. And then this is very important. But you see where it says finding superchargers for your trip. So what it does, because I'm not fully charged, anytime you go on a road trip, it does not navigate you directly to Wrigley Field. It directs you to the superchargers you will need to stop at along the way to charge the car to make sure you don't run out of charge. So if this car was fully charged, then we would not have to charge at this first one. So from my house to Wrigley Field, I would have to stop 3 times. This one, you don't have to charge that long to get there, but you never have to worry about where you're going to stop and charge the car. And when you're supercharging, even if it's empty, it maybe takes 25-30 minutes. For instance, it also shows you how many minutes you need to spend at that charger to get enough juice to get you to the next one. So you can stay the 30 minutes or you're going to stay until it's fully charged. It's totally up to you, but it takes the guesswork out of it. So you always know where you have to charge the car. Another thing about supercharging is that there are always places where there's fun near you. What I mean by fun is there's always coffee shops, Sometimes they're near malls. Give you an example. I go to Rochester, New York pretty frequently on business, and I always have to stop at Erie, Pennsylvania at a charging station. The charging station is next to a Cracker Barrel, so I always make sure that when I'm going, I'm hungry when I stop there, and that's the only place I have to charge to get to where I'm going in New York. If I'm going to Rochester, I stay at a hotel that has a destination charger. So once I get there, I plug in the car overnight, and that gets me through the whole day while I'm in the area working. Even if you're not going on a long trip, let's say you're just going to Sam's Club, then you can navigate to Sam's Club. And then what will happen is that it will show all of the Sam's Clubs in the area, and you just pick the one that you're going to go to, and then the car does everything else. So like I said, this is a 2014. I believe this is the third model year of when they came out, and the car is still very functional. Here it is 8 years later. Most of the features that the car was made to do, the car still does. There is nothing in the car that does not work because of the age of the car, which I think is pretty amazing for a car that's this old. What we're going to do now is talk about some of the issues that I had with the car, how much it costs to fix them, and we'll take it from there. So I'll be back. So I am back home, and as you see, that pretty Tesla is sitting right there. But as you can see, the door handles right now are in the in position. So as you walk to the car, then the handles will present themselves, or they call it auto present. So we're going to start walking towards the car. And as you see, the handles came out. I had mentioned one of the things that I had issues with. This just happened maybe a month and a half ago, is that the handles were not auto presenting. So I had to call Tesla, and they had a mobile service person come out to the car. And basically there is a wiring harness back here that had a broken wire, because the sensor for the handles is right here. So he did a test of it, found out that was the issue. One thing about Tesla is when you schedule your service, you do everything online. And when I first did the scheduling, it gave me an estimate of $800. And I know, like you guys are saying, and I said the same thing, yikes, I can't believe it's going to cost that much. And it did not. What they do is, in the estimate, they include the parts for everything that it could possibly be wrong. So they might quote you for 4 or 5 different parts or harnesses, and in reality with this one, it was just one wiring harness that was bad, and I think that everything together was less than $400. So it's one of those things with Tesla, is that they want to make sure that the guy has all of the parts when they come, and usually the estimate is on the high side. So it might scare you at first, but it'll end up being cheaper once they actually fix the car. We have mentioned supercharging, but basically this is my setup for home charging. This is not the expensive Tesla charger you can buy that's, I believe it's $500. So the way I have this wired, it's basically a 220 line. So it's just like the line you would have if you had a dryer in your garage, but it's a 220 line. And this is the mobile charger, or the portable charger that comes with the car. So it's nothing fancy. I just have this part mounted on the wall. And basically, all you have to do to charge the car is you back the car up. I just unloop this. Grab the charging port, or a charging plug, and come to the charging port, which is right here. Once you set this in front of the port, you push this button. See, it opens up. Plug it in. It's going to flash. And you are good to go. And this will automatically start charging the vehicle. So that's all it is, where sometimes people are like, oh, that might be a pain to do that every day, and oh, I don't know if I'd want to do that. As you see, that maybe took 30 seconds. One of the cool things about a Tesla is the Tesla app, where it really does tell you everything. So right now, as you can see, it is telling me that the car is charging. And then once it gets going, it'll tell me how long it will take to get it to a full charge and how many miles per hour the charging is set up. The way this is wired, it's about 17 miles of charge an hour. And just like that, it's slowly doing it. As you see, it is charging at 17 miles an hour, which is plenty, because even if the car is totally dead when you get home, if you're trying to get it charged up before you go to work, you have plenty of time. The charger from Tesla, it's $500, charges at 45 miles per hour. And because I like gadgets, I really do want to get it. I just can't justify spending the $500 for it, because I've never been in a situation where I needed to have that. Most of the time, if I'm going out of town, I plan accordingly and never get caught with needing to charge the car faster. I guess right now, since I have 93 miles, let's say something was going on in Cincinnati, then I wouldn't have enough time to charge it here at home, so I would have to go to a supercharger. And of course, like I showed you earlier, the car will show you what supercharger you got to stop at. So I don't really see where there's a whole lot of advantage to getting that, just in case you want to get it, because it really does look cool. But other than that, you can function with the Tesla without having that. So here is your view from inside the car, what it looks like when it's charging. And the good thing about Teslas is a lot of the controls are pretty self-explanatory. Like if you see up in the upper right hand corner, if you want to stop charging, you would hit stop charging. Now, I'm not sure how long it's been charging, but I'm up to 124 miles. And it says there's 5 hours and 40 minutes left. I think it had 80 something miles on it when I first hooked it up. So as I was saying, if you're going to work in the morning and want to charge it overnight, you've got plenty of time to get it up to the 90% or wherever you have it set. I always charge mine to 90%, and 5 hours is nothing. 5 hours and 40 minutes. So usually overnight charging does the trick. But let's say that I needed to go someplace and drive the car. There's two ways you can do this, because if you hit the brake to try to start the car, you see it says unable to drive, remove charge cable. But what you can do is you can hit the stop charging first, and then that will highlight the unlock charging cable, and then you can disconnect it and go on about your business. I find it easier to use the Tesla app, because that way you can do it while you're walking to your car instead of having to get in the car, push the buttons, and then get out and unplug it. I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm back outside the car with the app, and as you can see, the light is flashing. It did that once I opened up the app. But all you got to do is hit stop charging, and as you see, it stopped charging, and then unlock charge port. And you might have heard that click in the video, but then all you got to do is unplug it, hang this back up here, and this was an extra accessory. This doesn't come with the standard charger, but I just bought this to just hang it up on the wall, make it easier to store it. And then you can get in the car and go about your business. I'm gonna finish the rest of the video inside my house in a minute, but the one thing that I will say, I don't like to use the word hate, but I will use the word that I hate about this car, is there is no place to put anything. I have this little aftermarket center console here, but there is no place to put any papers in the pockets or even in the console. There's no place where you can put anything. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up the video. These are the last few things I would like to talk about. First thing I want to mention is mine is a P85, which is the performance model, and it is rear wheel drive. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and we are known for having bad winters. So getting the rear wheel drive had me a little bit concerned. My thinking was that since it's a Tesla, the torque would help me out, and the fact that the motor sits right on top of the rear wheels would also give it some traction. One thing to note is that on this car, the motor is not going to be as heavy as it would be on a regular gasoline engine. So I followed everyone's advice. I bought some used wheels because, as you see, mine has the really nice charcoal gray wheels, and the service department recommended to get the smaller, I believe they're 19 inches or the 17-inch wheels, to use those for winter. So I found a good deal on some used wheels that had some Michelin all-season tires on it. And let me tell you that the first snowfall we had was maybe a dusting, and it did horrible in the snow. Even with the Michelin all-season tires on it, it was bad. So I went ahead and spent the money that I didn't want to spend, but I bought some Michelin snow tires for it, maybe a couple of weeks into the winter, and it was like a totally different car. It handled beautifully. It never got stuck. The traction and everything was amazing in it. So I believe the way the torque and everything is with these cars, if you get one, especially, they recommend snow tires even on the all-wheel drive ones. But if you have a rear-wheel drive one, snow tires is an absolute must. But once you get a good quality snow tire, then driving in the winter is no issue at all. So this car I bought in right outside of Chicago. So I rode the train to Chicago, caught an Uber from the train station to the dealership, and drove the car home. As you know, it's a 2014. It had 75,000 miles on it, and I paid right at $31,000 for the car. So I figured for a car that was over $100,000 when it was new, that was not a horrible price for it. The cool thing about it is you kind of get used to a road trip, because I had a road trip when I first got it. So it was, a little bit interesting finding the superchargers and, parking the car and charging it up. But now it's kind of normal that when I go on a road trip, I know exactly what to expect. So that was one of the cool things about it, is that I had a road trip when I first got the car. In the teaser video, when I was talking about some of the good points and the bad points, I showed this picture of the car on a tow truck. As crazy as that seems, that was the day after I got the car. So I had the car for less than a day and had to have the car towed. Towing a Tesla, you know, sometimes I think stuff is a money grab, because to me it just seems like a regular car. There's nothing on the bottom, but not everybody will tow a Tesla. And the company that did tow it, they literally towed it maybe 4 miles, and it was like $240 to get it towed 4 miles. So I would definitely recommend that if you're going to buy a used one that doesn't have the full Tesla warranty, to get AAA Plus. I don't know how much they would charge you, but I know it would be cheaper than that. If you get AAA Plus, it's supposed to be free towing, but a lot of people feel like the rules are different for Teslas, and I have not had to have it towed where I had to pay for it since. Don't get me wrong, this car has been towed, but it was towed under the warranty, and I'll explain that in a minute when I go through some of the repairs that I've had to do on the car. As you can see, these are all of the pages of all of the things that I had done on the car. Like I said, I'm not trying to scare people. It's not doom and gloom, but I do want people to know, you know, the experiences that I had with my car, what happened, how Tesla took care of it, and my final thoughts on the car. Like I've been saying all along, I have no regrets buying this car. I would not hesitate to buy this car again. If I had a crystal ball to show me everything that I would go through with this car between the day I got it until now, I would still buy the car. I'm going to run through exactly what happened. So when the car got towed the day after I got it, it threw like a bunch of codes, and I kept getting an error message, low voltage, vehicle may not start, and it did in fact not start. With a Tesla, when they say start, it means to get ready for driving. So no motors or anything come on, but it does go through like a computer sequence to get the car ready to drive. So we had the car towed. This was on I think it was on a Tuesday. And with Teslas, it's kind of like trial and error when they try to find out what's wrong with it. But they did find that there was a connection that was not secure. That if they jiggled it, they could get it to do the fail codes. Because they towed the car, and the next morning, everything reset, and the car was actually drivable. So their challenge is they have to make the car repeat what it did, and then diagnose it from there. So they had the car until Friday night, and the total cost for that repair was $567. So with the tow, I was at $820. So that's $820 a week after getting the car, but I picked it up that Friday evening. So this is the part that really sucks. So we picked up the car on Friday, and over the weekend, me and my wife had a weekend trip to Columbus, Ohio, which is about 140 miles away from our house. So we go down there, we drive the car, it's performing perfectly. I'm figuring I'm over the hump. I'm saying, oh, this was so smart. I have a Tesla. This is the greatest thing ever. And me and my wife had a nice quiet evening planned on Sunday, and we're going to drive home on Monday. So I dropped her off at the hotel and said, hey, it should only be about a half hour. Let me go supercharge the car. That way tomorrow we can do a little bit of shopping, and then we have enough power to get home. About 20 minutes in, I get the same message saying that low voltage, the car may not start. And the car, in fact, would not start. And I had to call and have it towed again. But because of the codes, Tesla honored the tow under the warranty of the battery, and they towed the car, and I did not have to pay anything for it. What ended up being the issue, and this was Columbus Tesla, and they did a phenomenal job. They actually had the car for about 4 days, but they had a loaner that they gave me. So I was driving their car for free. And when I had my Tesla in the shop the first time, right after I got it, they gave me a loaner. So I've always been able to get a loaner. So that's never been an issue. But one thing that people will always tell you about the older Teslas is they will say, we have learned a lot since whatever year. So mine being a 2014, they always say, hey, we've learned a lot since 2014. In this case, there was a connector that when my car was first made was just a subpar connector. And over the years, they've realized they needed something more heavy duty. So they replaced the connector and the car was fine for a couple of months. That repair was $140. So that was not horrible. But, so that was the second repair. The car was fine until, I got it written down here, July 12th. Me and one of my sales reps were going to upstate New York to take care of some business. And like I mentioned, anytime I go to New York, we always have to stop in Erie, Pennsylvania to charge the car. So we pull in, we set up the car, we go into Cracker Barrel and we eat, and then we come back out, and maybe 40 miles had charged from the car. So I was like, well, what is going on here? I unplugged it, plugged it back in. It looked like everything was working fine. Then we get an error message saying that the car may not start. And once again, the car did not start. So we had to have the car towed. Unfortunately, we were in Erie, Pennsylvania. And at first Tesla was saying that they would not cover the tow because of some reason. But I'm one of those people that documents and saves everything. And the codes that the computer gave me were the exact same codes that the car did previously when they honored the tow. So after I talked to them and explained that to them, they did honor the tow, which was 100 miles away from the Tesla dealership. And they also gave me a $100 Uber credit. So that was enough to get me and my sales rep back to Cleveland. So because it was something with the battery, so they were saying, that's why they towed the car, and they were very reasonable with it. So I was able to get a loaner car once again, was able to go take care of my business in Erie, Pennsylvania. And it took them about 4 or 5 days to diagnose the car, but this is what they found out. As I mentioned before, it seemed like the early issues I was having, it seemed like the common denominator was supercharging. So what they did was they went through the whole systems and they targeted some of the things that are used in supercharging. And once again, this was a situation of they've learned a lot since 2014, and they had to replace the high voltage junction box. I guess that's where it converts the energy or something to be able to do supercharging versus regular charging. This one hurt because of it not being, the battery being bad. Then my out-of-pocket expense for this repair was $1,755. I know I mentioned earlier in the video that I was thinking about doing the upgrade to the better screen and the better processor, and that was actually scheduled, which was $1,600 to have the upgrade done. But of course, this was $1,700, so I used that money to get the car fixed. So that was the last repair that I had to pay for. There's, in this stack, I bought some floor mats. I just like all-purpose floor mats, you know, the ones like the WeatherTech style floor mats. So I bought some of those that was $245. And then in September, this is part of my strategy, because remember I mentioned that I was hoping that the battery and the engine would hopefully get replaced. And if both of them get replaced while it's still under warranty, that would be like having a new car. Well, on 9/27, I got some codes and the car was still drivable. and it still drove normally, but I took it to the service center, and they did in fact have to replace the motor. There was moisture in the motor, and that's what caused the codes. So that was free of charge. They had the car for about maybe 3 or 4 days. You know, replacing a motor in a Tesla is not nearly as involved as it is in a regular gasoline engine. And the car has been perfect ever since. So even though we've had a few bumps in the road and we've spent over $2,000 on out-of-pocket expenses, with what I'm saving in gas, especially now with gas being $4 a gallon, I don't have any regrets in the car. I mean, it's still just a really nice car. Being a 2014, you saw how it looks. It still looks as comparable and as good as some of the newer ones. The car still gets compliments. The car still turns heads. And it's just, to me, it's an engineering marvel that this car can do what it does just from you plugging it in and letting it charge up. So overall, you know, I would say that it was a good purchase. You know, I would not discourage anyone from buying one. Just do your research. You know, finding out what's on the car is important. Sometimes if you get lucky, because I did experience this, I called a dealership that was in Nevada, and they did tell me some things that had been replaced on the car. You know, they're not supposed to do that, but I guess they figured, you know, this guy's from Ohio, who's he going to tell? So they were able to tell me some of the things that were on the car that had been replaced. Another thing that you need to know about Teslas is when you buy one, you have to download proof of ownership. Once you download proof of ownership, it is then and only then that you can set up your account online with the Tesla app, because they will not let you do that unless you are the confirmed owner of the car. So that's something else to keep in mind. But overall, I hope this is a good guide for buying a used Tesla, because I know that a lot of people are probably looking at that now with gas prices the way they are. You've got to do a little bit of research, but I will tell you right now that I would 100% not recommend buying one. I will tell you right now that I would recommend, or rather, I will tell you right now, I would not recommend to buy one of these without some kind of warranty left on the engine and the battery. Even if it's a year, even if it's 6 months or whatever, depending on, you know, what your budget is and what you have set aside for possible repairs and all of that, I would definitely get one that has some kind of warranty on the battery and the motor, just as you go through the growing pains. But other than that, I mean, like I said, it's been a great purchase. I would not hesitate again to get another one. I'm just going to wait and see what happens when the warranty is up on this one. And if they replace the battery, that would be the battery replaced and the motor replaced. So it should be like a new car. But I'm anticipating that once more cars are out there and once the technology changes, that the price of batteries will come down like it does on everything else. But I know this video was kind of long, but you know, I wanted it to be kind of like a buyer's guide to kind of help people out that are thinking about buying them. And you know, these were my experiences. You know, some people might have bought one and had nothing go wrong with it, but this is what happened in my case. So if you like the channel, please subscribe. We've got some other videos coming up. If you're looking around on the channel, we've got some cooking videos. We've got some car videos. We're going to do more technology videos. Like I have a Sony ZV-1 camera that I'm using that I want to do a review of, that I now think I know how to use. So stay tuned to the channel. We're going to do a lot of fun things. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time.